5th. To begin our meeting, we will have an invocation. I'll give that myself, and then Jordan, would you lead us in the pledge?
Sure.
Our Father in heaven, we're grateful this night that we can come together as a city council. We're grateful for the blessings of prosperity here in our city. We're grateful for the blessings of having such a wonderful place where we can find good neighbors and find peace and harmony. We pray that there'll be a special spirit on this meeting, that we'll make wise decisions, that we'll have thy guidance with us. And we pray for all of our citizens, that they will prosper. We say this in the name of thy Son, Jesus the Christ. Amen.
Amen. Please rise and give the proper hand salute.
I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
Can I get a motion to adopt the agenda?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Are they adopted? Are the agenda is adopted? To begin our meetings, we have public comment. This is where any of our citizens can come forward for up to 3 minutes and tell us things that are on your mind that may not be on our agenda, or things you'd like on a future agenda. So I will open up public comment. Please come forward to the mic. Remember to state your name and your address.
Mr. Mayor, council members, appreciate the opportunity. Last week, one of my neighbors, we had spoke about the impact on the growth of the city. I'm one of those neighbors, and I'm not here to dispute. I am here to just try to increase your awareness of what that impact is having on the citizens.
Can you state your name and address?
Specifically on 3000.
Yeah.
I live on 3000 West, just a little bit north of the roundabout on 700. The increase in traffic is something else. That's something we can complain about, but I don't know what we can do about it. But the heavy equipment, specifically trucks hauling dirt, gravel, etc. I counted today about 30 of them up and down the street, which isn't doing kind of loads, by the way. But anyway, it's creating an impact because of noise and of dirt. Now, we know that the contractor has sent a sweeper out on those streets, and that has helped. But with this kind of weather, they draw a lot of that back out on the street, and we get the dust from it. So just wanted to increase your awareness of how we feel about it. And if there's anything that we can do to help the city in any way, we will be more than happy to do that.
I appreciate that. I will just note for you and everyone else that we won't discuss this topic because it's not on the agenda. But
Thank you.
This topic specifically, Robert Whiteley, our Public Works Director, and myself were on a conference call with UDOT and the contractors today, and specifically asked them about that. They are working on some alternate routing, and they will report back to the fleet that there have been some complaints about noise and speed and dirt, and they're going to try to work with us to improve that. Okay, we're aware of that, and that's a policy that we will have to take care of at another time because it's not on this agenda. Are there any other public comments? Come forward.
Brent Burgess, 3008 South, 3000 West, Syracuse. Regarding the noise, I did complain once, and they actually responded. The construction guys responded in a positive way. So as far as that goes. I just wanted to make a comment about Dennis Johnson, if I could.
Sure.
I've had a couple of business dealings with him, and it's usually related to electrical work. And I would get myself in a quandary because I'm trying to do a project by myself. And every time I've called on him, he's saved the day, and he is really good at what he does. Honest. He can keep confidential information confidential, and I hope you'll consider him when we reach that point in the meeting.
Thank you. Are there any other public comments? Seeing none, I will close public comment. Council, I'm looking for a motion on the approval of minutes from our January 11th meeting.
Mayor, sorry, do you want me to read that other public comment into the
Oh,
record?
I'm sorry. We had apparently at the last minute, a public comment come by email. Yes, would you read that into the record?
Okay, it says, Dear Council, the following is from Jacob Briggs regarding the proper handling of residential waste. Not long ago, the city responded to an inquiry as to why there were no cardboard recycling bins available for use by the residents, and replied that the bins have been removed because city employees have been required to clean up overflow from the bins, and added that there was no need for the cardboard bins because the cardboard is being sorted out and recycled after garbage collection. I was relieved to hear that such sorting is occurring and curious as to the details. On January 20th, I toured the Wasatch Integrated Facility with a group of children and would recommend the tour for everyone. While the sorting and recycling process going on at that transfer facility is impressive, I learned from the operations manager, Preston Lee, that the facility is currently not sorting cardboard from residential garbage. This is because cardboard mixed with other garbage becomes tainted and is therefore of lesser quality for recycling purposes, and at current prices not considered justified for sorting. Only cardboard coming in from recycle collection bins is being sorted. Accordingly, all cardboard placed in our household garbage bins is not removed and ends up being trucked south at additional cost to a different landfill. This trucking to an offsite landfill is being done to postpone the date when the Davis County landfill will exhaust its capacity. I believe a comprehensive plan is needed at the city level for the proper collection of our waste and should include such measures as will incentivize the most cost-effective means of reducing our collective impact. Reinstatement of the large cardboard recycling bins is perhaps an initial but temporary suggestion, and the city could go on to consider more innovative solutions, such as providing a recycling container to each household and then offer each household the option of how large a garbage bin it needs, with a graduated price schedule based on bin size. This is just an example based on something I have seen done elsewhere. My objective here is to start a discussion by letting you know that cardboard is not being recycled and encourage you to find the appropriate solution. Thank you to the mayor, council, and staff for your service and work.
Well, I appreciate that comment, but the council as an entirety toward that plan. And we did see quite a bit of cardboard packaged for recycling. So I'm not sure, maybe there's change and we need to be informed, but wonderful facility. Let's move on. I need a motion to approve the minutes unless someone has a point of clarification.
I move that we approve the minutes of January 11th, 2022 business meeting.
Second.
Moved and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That passes unanimously. We have one item of common consent on the agenda. Authorize administration to execute the memorandum of understanding with Antelope BMX and the proposed BMX park. That's been discussed in a previous meeting at length and including tours and visits. So that's on our common consent agenda unless somebody would like to remove it for discussion. If not, I take a motion.
I move that we approve or consent to authorize administration to execute memorandum of understanding with Antelope BMX for a BMX park project.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you. That passes unanimously. We have a proposed ordinance enacting a temporary land use regulation prohibiting consideration of the mixed use zone until we have a chance to work on that. This was something that I added to the agenda after suggestion of many citizens asking that we take a look at this zone. The only way to really do that in my mind is to give us a little bit of time. So I'll open that item for discussion. So anyone would like to start?
So Yeah, I mean, I definitely agree that there is an opportunity for us to improve the mixed use. And I think we use the mixed use zone as a tool, a worm, so to speak, on a hook to bring in commercial development. And when we instituted the MXD, we had no idea, to what extent the ratios need to be, the commercial to residential ratios and all kinds of other issues, architectural standards, lots of other items that were outlined in the packet. We used it and it attracted some projects to ad nauseum.
One or two.
Yeah. And so for me, it served its purpose to the extent that it was designed and our understanding was at that time. I think there is opportunity for us to improve it. I would prefer rather than and I think I need some clarification from wherever Paul is in the cloud.
He's available online.
Okay. Just some clarification on what this would do for us as far as a moratorium versus pulling out and recommending language to Planning Commission to look at specific items, because I think that's the direction we wanted to go in November.
So I will comment on that because one of the reasons Paul actually gave me two options on this. And one of the options was that we could pull this out, put a temporary restriction on it with the provision that we are working on it. But the difference in that option is it goes forever. There's no end to that unless we take action. If we do this with a temporary land use regulation, it restricts us to 6 months to have an adjustment. So to me, this is a little bit of accountability. It forces us to act within a time limit so that we can do this. And the other thing that I will share is that I checked with economic development. There was only one possible application in the pipeline, but that's pretty much finished. So that could be considered a current application. But what this does is it says that we wouldn't get another application in the next couple of months. This is the time that we should do that because we don't typically get them in the middle of the winter. And that would give us a chance to fix it. Other comments?
It seemed like in November in that meeting, there was a lot of discrepancy between the council at what was said and how it was interpreted and stuff. And it just seems with the city, a lot of people feel that this needs reviewed. I'm not sure what that is, but go get them.
Others?
I kind of wanted to pull. So it's my understanding that when you announce that you are making adjustment to an ordinance, anyone that applies technically has to wait for that new ordinance to be changed. Is that not correct? Is that what you were saying, Seth?
Or a decision is made, right?
Or decision is
That's-
made.
So that there's some leeway, and we can ask Paul for clarification, the city attorney. But my understanding was there's some consideration that they could use the zone as is of the day of their application, unless we do this.
So if we've already got, so I guess I am actually concerned about one application I know that is coming that I want to make sure we are not prohibiting them from applying.
We've discussed that. They're about 97% in, and we could consider them at this time in.
But is that going to be legal? Will there be any discrepancy for?
Could that be challenged?
Exactly.
It could be. Here's the concern that I have. I think that they haven't decided if this is the right zone for them, and I think it's probably not. So they'll probably apply for a different zone.
But we
But we
haven't
don't know that
spoken
for
with
certain.
them, and so this is very concerning to me to go forward with a vote on something that we haven't discussed previously, and we haven't spoken to the people who are in the midst of working on this zone and getting approval. And I think it could be really detrimental to their product or project if we pass something without considering them and speaking to them. So I would suggest that we table this until we have spoken to the people who will be with the greatest impact on them.
I don't think that we should be doing this according to a specific contractor. That would be, we should
That's
do this
correct.
according
So
to the
I
entire
think we
city.
should table this until we have further clarification of the impact it will have on any other proposals that are currently in the pipeline.
Is there only that one in the pipeline
Mhm.
right now? So I mean, she has a point. It is fair to them to give them the opportunity to work through what they're working through. And
They still have the opportunity regardless of
But-
whether we do this.
But it can leave it open for
I think-
challenge.
Yeah, I think the path for me, the most common sense path is to officially notify that we are changing this ordinance.
We have. I asked Noah to do that before this meeting.
Okay, then that automatically means that, I mean, it's not a moratorium, but it has the same effect. No one can apply under the old rules. And we will work through this and fix it. And this allows applications to come in and we can look at them, but we don't have to act on them until we are done with the ordinance. I think it has the same effect as a moratorium without discouraging projects from showing us what they want to add to the city. And but just realizing that the ordinance is going to change and we kind of think we know how, but I guess that's kind of where I'm going. I don't think the moratorium is necessary. I think by you notifying any applicants that this is changing, it effectively does the same thing without as many restrictions.
so if if they were just notified before this meeting, should we not allot them at least a certain amount of time? The one that we have in the pipeline?
Well, and along those lines,
Paul's
to
got it.
take away the 6-month stipulation, when you set a time limit, then you just in essence stopped anybody's progress in going forward, and that could be detrimental to the city as well.
I mean, I
So-
think this is a good idea, like reviewing this, it's necessary, it's needed. But this one specific thing that we're all talking about, I believe it's the hospital. So it's clear. I mean, it is what it is. We want transparency. We're talking about, like, if they're going to bring that in and they're already in the works of it, if it's going to do something to their packet,
It's not.
and can you guarantee that it won't?
There's several
can't
options. We've
guarantee
talked.
You
that.
can't guarantee that it won't, and they're already been working with us. That's not really fair to them, but I think this is necessary. But is it necessary right now, or can we table it for 2 weeks?
I think we can table it.
Can we get
So
Paul?
Even just 2 weeks to give them the time to,
I agree. There needs to be
but
a,
this is necessary. I agree with you, Mayor. This is definitely necessary. We have to review it.
but there is that one.
Paul has his
really-
hand raised. I'd love to hear what he has to say.
Please.
Mayor, is it all right if I address the council?
Yes, please.
Thank you. Just by way of information, Noah informed me today that there is someone submitted an application this afternoon. So there would be then 2 in the pipeline. That's new information I just barely got like an hour ago. Just so the council is aware. So there are multiple ways to sort of send the message. The temporary land use ordinance would essentially prohibit someone from applying, which has the benefit of it does reduce staff time reviewing it. It also discourages people from expending the resources it takes to put together a mixed use application. As you may know, those require elevations and a lot of work up front. And so it kind of signaled to everyone, hey, don't do too much work because we're changing this. In fact, don't even apply. The council could, as the mayor mentioned, one other option is the council could pass a resolution just saying, hey, broadcasting to people, we're not going to be approving any zone changes until we've made changes to the text. These are legislative decisions that you're making. So you can, even if someone applies before the change, you can just say no and then say reapply under the new ordinance. Or there were a couple of projects either last year or the year before where we did spot some issues. We kind of put things on hold. We changed the ordinance and then they agreed to the new ordinance as part of their approvals. Ultimately, the council has the power to say no if the proposal doesn't fit the ordinance or doesn't fit where you think the ordinance should be. You can say no to any zoning decision as long as it's a reasonably debatable reason. And too much growth or an ordinance that's too uncertain is a perfectly valid reason that would be defensible. And then as far as the other option of having a text amendment. If there's a text amendment that's been proposed and submitted to the planning commission and it's under review and an application comes in that's contrary to it, then you can deny that application it's also got a 6-month time period on it. So what the mayor was hoping for was let's signal to the development community up front that, hey, this is going to change and probably substantially. So don't invest too much at this point, and let's sort of broadcast that we're going to be changing this zone. So thank you.
So Paul, in regards to the timing, as Mayor alluded to, that there's 6 months for the moratorium. Is it truly indefinite when there's a text amendment that we can put them on hold forever?
So he was referring to the resolution format where it was more that we would say we're not going to be considering any more of these zone changes. And that could be indefinite because there's no limit on that. So that's what we discussed. That was an option. Where was the text amendment where we didn't have any specific language to present to the council in order to submit to the planning commission? Didn't know if it was ripe for that. So those are the two options that we discussed was the temporary land use regulation, which is before you, and then the resolution, which is a bit more open-ended and a bit more, just more of a signal rather than more definitive.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is there are three options, but since we don't have a text amendment ready, perhaps that's not the best course to go. Is that what I'm hearing?
Or at least not tonight.
We'd have to wait
not
until that
tonight.
was completed.
Which is why I think tabling it for 2 weeks so that we can get those details in order is probably our best course of action, especially with a couple in the pipeline.
I think that's ample time for that.
I just don't want to create a chilling effect, even if we're talking about one or multiple projects. I don't want to stop them altogether and say that we're not doing business, Syracuse is closed.
Yes.
I'd still like to see opportunities come forward and then give us the time to amend the text.
Agreed.
The problem is with the text amendment is it's going to take more than 2 weeks.
Well, yeah, but I mean, the moratorium gives us automatically up to 6 months and you can
Yeah.
renew it. So I think.
No, it can
We're
be,
not-
No, but
it
just
can be
tabling
ended at
to
any.
pass.
Well, I know it can, but what's the likelihood that we get through in our discussions in less than 6 months? I just don't see that happening.
Well, I would hope we would,
But when have we shown that to be?
That 6 months does hold us
So what are-
accountable though.
We're just
Yeah.
not.
Mayor, could I suggest something?
go ahead.
You're debating on which vehicle to take to get to the same kind of destination. You could self-impose a timeline, with your resolution. So one is a state maximum of 6 months that you can do it. The other vehicle, you can, it's not necessarily indefinite. You can pass a resolution with a self-imposed sunset, if you will, so that it goes away automatically.
I guess my goal here is I want people to what Seth said. I want people to know Syracuse is still open for business. We encourage people to come and create their businesses here in Syracuse. I know this doesn't prohibit that, but I think I want to make sure that we have the ability to select a project that we think meets our mixed use, our plan for our mixed use zone. But at the same time, I want to make sure that we do fix these loopholes that we've kind of had. We realized the worm was apparently very good. And so maybe we can use a little bit less bait.
So let me ask you this
to bring in
question,
the mixed
Jordan.
use. Go ahead.
According to what we've seen so far, do you think you got what you expected out of any of the mixed use applications?
No, I don't. But I want to communicate to them that we're changing it. And
So why wouldn't we propose to fix it before we continue to let it go and do more of them?
Because
I am proposing that. I just don't know the correct vehicle. What I don't want to do is tell people they can't apply anymore.
This is only
for 6
one
months.
zone.
If they
Every other
apply
zone
and
is still
change it
open.
and
and
it doesn't fit to what they applied, then what was the point of them wasting that money? So I agree with both of you guys, you and Lisa, in the sense that this does need adjusted and we shouldn't take any more applications while it's being adjusted, because we're basically out there being like, we'll take your money, even though it may not work in the end. But we need to give them a couple of weeks to let them know that it's not.
And we need to find out if it does negatively impact those who are already in the process and near completion.
Okay, so Paul, you're here. Can you answer to that question that this does or does not have an impact on existing applications?
The council could apply it technically under the ordinance, but you wouldn't have to. So you could say if someone has applied, then this could go into effect at the end of the week. You could say, applications which have been submitted to the city are not affected by this. That'd be okay too. You just would add that to the ordinance or the approval.
So there's no necessity that this has any impact on anything that's already in the pipeline.
As long as we include that verbiage in the motion for it, that it doesn't.
If they're
Correct.
already an application, they're
Well,
fine.
that's what you just said, correct, we have to include that in it.
It'd be good to be clear. That's all I'm saying.
So if we go not the moratorium route, the other one, I forgot what it's called. Resolution route. You could accept an application. They could still apply. We just wouldn't have to consider it.
That's correct.
And I prefer to go with a resolution rather than have a chilling effect on any possible developments that we might really want to see and might want to have the timing might be of the essence as well. And so I either we need to table this until we've spoken with the people who are being greatly impacted by it, or we need to pass a resolution. Those are my two opinions.
I'm willing to go the resolution route.
Would you make
With
that
the time.
motion?
Sure, Mr. Mayor, I propose that we, as a council, create a resolution stating with a 6-month time limit that we will not be actively considering mixed use zones for that duration
Do I have a second?
while we work on it.
Second.
So friendly emotion that we also allow, I mean, up to 6 months, not for an entire.
Fair, up to
Up
6
to.
months.
A friendly amendment.
I called it an
Accepted.
emotion. That was not an emotion.
Okay, so friendly amendment accepted. I have a motion and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion passes.
Mayor, can we just get one quick point of clarification?
Yep,
So the item on the agenda was the proposed ordinance enacting the temporary land use ordinance. Are you adopting something different than
we're
that?
adopting a temporary resolution that is as described by legal counsel.
Can we do
Yeah, I
that?
need to just double check with Paul that we can do that where that was not what was advertised. That part hasn't been advertised.
That's a good question. It wasn't specifically on there, but it's the same subject matter, and it's kind of like
An alternate resolution.
it's like an alternate of that ordinance. So where the language of the resolution is going to be substantially similar, I think it's fair game to say that that's okay. If you wanted to be double careful, we could just put it on the next business meeting, just like as a consent or ratification, just saying this is the resolution that we intended. And then we could do that just to be careful and ensure that everyone had a chance to review it.
So I'm going to rule that according to legal counsel, we're still within our parameters. And so we'll move on.
Okay, but really quickly, can I assign a number to that resolution?
Yes.
And can you say that resolution number in the record,
Yes.
please? Will you please just indicate that you're adopting resolution R 2203?
So
Okay.
moved,
Second,
as already mentioned.
do I have a second? Moved and seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, resolution number adjusted. Okay, now we get to the really fun part for which most of you are here. We have an opening on the city council as there is one more seat on our dais. Tonight, we will be hearing from those who have applied who have not withdrawn, as we have had several withdrawals. So we will hear from you in this order. Jill Bonstill, Brett Cragen, Dallas Johnson, Dennis Johnson, Jessica Kajar, Doug Lund, Mike Palmer, Devin Prouty, and Paul Watson. We'll give each of you 5 minutes, according to, 5 minutes to present yourself. You do not have to take the full 5 minutes. We have read what you've sent in writing and has been presented. So you can take up to 5 minutes to tell us what you think we should know about you. And then we will move on with the first round of voting. Just for clarification, the first round of voting, we have to eliminate 66% of you or more. So unfortunately, all but one of you is going to go home thinking that you were robbed, and I'm sorry about that, but there is only one seat. So while we have many good candidates, only one of you will be sworn in tonight. So with that said, we'll begin. We'll ask Jill to come forward and kick off these presentations.
Thank you, everyone, and thank you for your help, Ms. Brown, in applying. Hello, neighbors. My name is Jill Bonstill, and like each of you, I love Syracuse. 21 years ago, I received an award, a State of Volunteerism Award from then Lieutenant Governor Olene Walker. And at that time, she told me the secret to a happy life is service, and I completely agree. For the last 2 decades, I've served our community, focusing on issues that specifically impact our families. I've sat on boards and met with stakeholders, and I've sat with families in some of the hardest imaginable moments. Service has brought me great joy. It has also made me very grateful and has given me a unique perspective that I will be forever thankful for. As far as my professional experience goes, I have degrees from Southern Utah University, Park University, and a master's of education in psychology from Utah State University. I'm also a licensed educator, a professional educator license, and I am a certified suicide prevention instructor. I have a certificate in family engagement from Harvard, and I am a counselor, and I literally listen for a living. And so that is what I am volunteering to bring to the team, my background in listening. I have and will continue to listen to my friends and neighbors about the issues that impact our homes and our families. I'm also experienced at mediating conflict and problem solving. I am enthusiastic, passionate, and a realistic optimist. And I'm a bit of a nerd, and I'm okay with that. I will disaggregate data all day long. Prior to being a counselor, I was a psychometrist, which means I have great analytical skills and I can view things objectively. There are hard decisions that have to be made here in Syracuse. Our citizens need to know that our city needs more money. Our infrastructure, such as roads, needs attention, and that comes at a very high cost. We also have a high rising cost of water and inflation. And simply put, yesterday's dollar is not going to do enough tomorrow. I think if citizens can better understand the why behind the decisions we make, many difficult decisions that the city council makes, it's going to be better for everyone. We all care about the safety and quality of life of families, and we also care a lot about our officers and our first responders and our city employees, and we can't afford to lose them to other cities. They are well-trained. They are part of us here at Syracuse. We love the people here, the connectedness, the parks, how clean and safe Syracuse is. That's what brought my family here originally. And I think we can look to ways to cut spending, but the reality is we need businesses to come and stay and succeed in Syracuse. I want to say thank you to everyone that uses social media in a positive way. That's what we need. We need the beautiful, the positive. It's what our world needs. So keep promoting and supporting our local small businesses. We have a lot of big issues, and it's true. The more we strengthen public trust, listen, are transparent, practice fiscal conservation, and work with proactive engagement to provide citizens a great customer service, the more everyone wins. Syracuse is a great community. Last spring, I went outside to go for a walk, and 12 little ducklings fell into a storm drain. I rushed over, and within minutes, my neighbor had grabbed his pool net, and someone else grabbed a crowbar. We had someone from the Air Force Base in his military uniform stop to try to help to see what we needed. A mom with 5 kids came over. And that is what's great about Syracuse. We were able to rescue 9 on our own, 9 little ducks out of 12. And then 3 of our amazing Syracuse City employees came, and they flushed from one side of the storm drain across the street and flushed those little 3 ducklings out. And that's what's great about our community. My favorite part of the story, though, is that day my son met a new friend that came to save the ducks, and they are now best friends. I am just so grateful for my neighbors, and that's really what community is about, coming together, building those relationships. I'm just your neighbor, a wife, a mom, a Cub Scout leader. There's nothing remarkable about me, but I'm willing to serve, listen, learn, work, and love our city and help create that sense of community we all crave. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good job.
Good evening, Mayor Mon and council members. I appreciate the opportunity to be here tonight. I know that over the past few months, everybody up here has had the opportunity to hear my background, and I understand that you've read the letter of intent. So rather than spend a ton of time going through that again, I wanted to touch on your question number 2 that you presented, which are what do you believe are the greatest challenges Syracuse faces? And what have you done as a citizen to help address these challenges? You know, I was a member of the Planning Commission for over 4 years. During the time I was on the Planning Commission, we had a number of businesses and property owners submit projects and who wanted approval on these different projects. As a member of the Planning Commission, it was very important to me to ensure that people who wanted to invest in our city had an opportunity to present and to provide information on their project. That is something that is not only respectful of the process, but it is good public relations as well. Now, as we listen to those members who or those business owners and those project and developers who wanted to present information to us, some of it worked, some of it didn't. At the end of the day, the Planning Commission was required to make a recommendation to the City Council on what should happen with that. Sometimes those recommendations were approval. Sometimes those recommendations were approval with conditions. Sometimes those recommendations were for disapproval. During the time that I spent on the Planning Commission, there were occasions when I suggested or recommended that this council make an approval. There were times when it was done with the condition. There were times when I was the lone dissenter on the Planning Commission and said that a particular project probably was not appropriate. My idea in making sure that the City Council was able to hear the projects was to ensure that at the end of the day, the Planning Commission understands that it's this body who makes the final decision-making process. In making recommendations to the City Council, my idea of doing that was to give this body the opportunity to make full and fair decisions on a project that had been vetted and reviewed and discussed, and in many cases had public hearings on the issue of the project being valid. That does not mean, as one of the concerns that I think has been raised during the election and even as recently as today is that I have a particular affinity for high density housing. This is not a situation where I have an affinity for high density housing. I want business owners to feel welcome in Syracuse. I want business owners to feel that they can come here and have a fair shake on what is going on. Now, there were situations, just as has been discussed tonight, where things change. For instance, when the multi-use ordinance came out of Planning Commission, it was very different than what's contained in what you discussed tonight. We had concerns about the ratio between commercial and residential. That was changed. We had concerns about what types of projects would be brought in. That was changed, but we did look at that time. We sought to have an appropriate ordinance that be submitted. And I just want to ensure that this body understands when I made recommendations, those recommendations were with the purpose of having good decisions made and having business owners and developers treated well, to have the citizens listened to, and to have an understanding of what was to take place. I can help this City Council. I have background, I have training, I have certain knowledge that can help the very issue that happened tonight from happening again. You've got a situation now where you've had an ordinance in place for several years that didn't work. If you look at what happened when the...
You're running out of time.
Okay, all right. I'll conclude I thought you were telling me to stop. I'm used to having a judge up there. I'll conclude. I appreciate the opportunity to be here. I do think that I have background knowledge and skills that can help the very things that you're discussing tonight. So it is better in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Brett.
Just a quick point of clarification. If we get to that, 10-second mark, I'm going to let you know so that to wrap it up, because we do have to stay on schedule with this many candidates. Okay, next is Dallas Johnson.
I will definitely not take 5 minutes. I'm pretty quick. I have a couple notes here. First of all, I'm honored and happy to be here. Appreciate the opportunity. It's always nice to serve. I was in the United States Navy for 31 years. Had the opportunity to serve during that time and a lot of different places, lots of not so fun and some fun opportunities. Let me just tell you about my family. I know that you guys read what I wrote, but I married a Thurgood. She grew up on 700 South. Her family's still there. We actually built on the property that her grandparents had. So I've been married for 33 years. I have 5 kids. I have 4 grandchildren. Am I a lifelong resident of Syracuse? No, I vacationed here pretty much every summer. We came here and vacationed. This was our spot. Do I enjoy it here? Yes, I do. I want my kids to move here. I want them to go to school here, my grandkids. I want them to be close, like any grandparent wants them to be. Let me just say about my Navy experience. Navy is very contentious, as you can imagine. It's just the nature of the beast. When you're in wartime or you're on a ship, or you have strong personalities. When I was the boss, or when I was just one of the managers or leaders, or if I was just the lowest ranking person on the in the room, I always tried to avoid contention. I tried to work to come up with solutions. That was what I worked towards pretty much my entire Navy career, because one, I don't like contention. I'm a quiet person by nature. I will listen. I'm a good listener. I take my time to make decisions. I'm a detail person. Let me just mention one other thing, and I don't know how much I have.
You're good.
I've had the opportunity to sit when I was in Cuba. I was on it's called I'm trying to think of the acronym. Anyways, it's for the detainees in judgment. We sat in judgment for each one of the detainees that we were assigned. Very difficult decisions to be made. And a lot of times, and I noticed somebody mentioned they were a dissenter. Sometimes I was the lone dissenter and it is a very lonely spot to be in. But sometimes you have to stand up for what's right. And while I don't know every thing that's going on in the city, this is actually the first city council meeting that I've come to. I have come to the planning board because our house had some issues that we needed to resolve. But anyways, I'm grateful for this opportunity. Whatever the decision is, I support you. I know it's hard to make decisions, and I'm happy to be here, and thank you very much.
Thank you.
My name's Dennis Johnson. I live on 3415 West, 2200 South. I've lived there for the last 36 and a half years. I'm definitely out of my comfort zone here. I'm not a public person, really. Kind of stay to myself for the most part. I have a wife and 10 children, 28 grandchildren, 1 great grandchild. I've decided I'm going to make my home here until I move on to the other side. I grew up just north of here in a community called Canesville, Utah. It's now part of West Haven. I went to following high school, I went to college at Weber State. I got a journeyman electrician license from there, and then I've also had a master electrician light for the last 30 years, or 38 years. I'm a co-owner of MCL Electric, which is, we ran together with my brother for 36 years. I've spent a lot of time here in this city. We wired the original City Hall and Fire Station when the old one was torn down. And some of the things that happened in the creation of that building, I was very privy to some misuse of public funds. When that building was built, it was strongly suggested that it not be built with a basement because of an underground aquifer. Some of the city people elected to go against that council. And before it even opened, they had 4 feet of water in the basement. So a lot of money was wasted for that situation. I don't believe in analysis paralysis. When I see a job that needs to get done, my tendency is to look at the problems, find solutions, and get the job done. I like to work hard. I love to serve. I've donated many hours and a lot of money to this city over the years. And I have a love for the city and a great interest in it. I appreciate the opportunity to speak to you tonight. You've seen my written resume and questions answered, and I hope that if you have any questions about those, that I can answer them another time. Thank you for your time. And someone once said, the mind can only absorb what the rear end can endure, so I'm going to sit down. Thank you.
Good evening, Council. Thank you for having me. I'll be starting now. My name is Jessica Kerr. I know it's pronounced a little bit weird. It's a married name. I grew up here in Syracuse. I attended Syracuse Junior High, Clearfield High School. I can probably walk you through some of these streets and point out scars on my body from where I've fallen, tripped over, did something I wasn't supposed to do as a teenager. I went to Clearfield High School, and I grew up here with all of my friends playing night games and making this home ours. We felt so safe here, and those friends are still lifelong friends today, thanks to this environment. A little bit more about my background. I have been a legislative assistant for Representative, now Commissioner Gage Frower, for several years up at the Utah State Capitol. I've also worked on about 7 campaigns here in the state of Utah, 2 national, 5 local, with a 71.4% success rate. I used to work in the elections office. I've done midterm elections, major elections, general elections, all of them. I then decided to move over to the court side, and I worked at the Matheson in the administrative office of the courts, then moved up to 2nd District Court in Ogden, where I had the privilege of working for Judge Camille Nider and presiding Judge Michael DeRita. And now I find myself at the State Board of Education. I am on, ironically, their CARES team, spelled normally. And the reason I am there is we handle all COVID emergency dollars heading to Utah schools today. Those dollars impact about 600,000 students, and those dollars as of today total $978 million going directly to local schools here in Utah. One of my biggest, proudest projects is a current one that was launched on January 18th. It's called Donors Choose. The Utah State Board of Education put $12 million into this Donors Choose program, where teachers can go and submit projects for up to $1,000 of whatever they need, supplies, Chromebooks, whatever they may be. As I said, this launched on the 18th of January. And as of an hour ago, we have been able to give $6,884,000 to local teachers here in Utah. That's 7,076 teachers total, 972 schools impacted. This is what I do on the day-to-day. I enjoy my work. I enjoy being resourceful. It's part of who I am. I have volunteered with the American Cancer Society, the American Heart Association. In 2016, I was elected or voted the Advocate of the Year for the Utah Epilepsy Association, which is one of my proudest achievements after working on Charlie's Law at the Utah State Capitol. I'm here, I want to be invested, I want to give my services, and I truly am invested here. I have a 2.5-year-old son that I'm raising here with my husband. I want him to be able to walk through these streets and point out scars. Not that I want to pay to fix the scars, but I want him to be able to walk down the streets and point out spots where he got this scar, where this happened. This is where his lifelong friend was. I can tell you today that my friends used to stand on the corner of Bluff and that little Country Garden sign right there for our bus stop every day, and I loved it. I've always wanted to serve this city, and what inspired me to do so is when we first moved into our subdivision here, some subdivisions have those funky signs, welcome to Country Gardens, welcome to this area. A couple weeks in, we had our spray painted and vandalized with a lot of words just spray painted on there. My dad, not working for the city, just moved here, paid out of pocket to have that power washed because he did not want that to be a representation of where he lived. That moment has stuck with me. I don't want to ever be in a situation where I live something that I can't represent or believe in. And I know I can make a difference here, and I can bring all my resources and confidence here to the council as well. So thank you.
Jennifer, Lisa, Jordan, Seth, Dave, thank you. I appreciate the opportunity I have to stand here before the council, the opportunity of hopefully filling an empty seat in the city council. When I received my 5 questions and had to answer them, I asked 5 questions. I asked a few questions. I found out that in Syracuse, we have a population of 32,000 people right now. I found out that we have 7,800 single-family homes, with 870 single-family homes have been approved to be built, another 10%. I found out that we have 286 townhomes that have been approved. I found out that we have 699 apartments that have been approved and a hotel. In finding out this, I found out we got a budget of about $47 million that we've got to figure out how we're spending and what we're doing. I sent emails to Chief Atkin, Chief Boynton. I found out that we need 5 more full-time firemen. We need 3 more part-time firemen. I found out that we've lost 3 police officers in the last 6 months, but we've replaced them. We got 2 that are still doing their field work, and they'll be ready to go in April. We've got 1 that is going to in the academy, and he'll be ready in 2023. But guess what? The end of January, we got 2 more that have resigned. COVID's hit. My young son went over to the police office and gave him a nice flag, metal flag that he donated out of his own desire and what he wanted to do. Wanted to do a ride around, but we can't do a ride around right now because we don't have the resources to do it. He was able to do a ride around with the fire department and loved doing it. Personally, I've used the fire department. We've had the paramedics over at our house and had somebody rush to the hospital. I've used the police department. Crazy intersection at 2700 and 3000 where you've got stop signs going 2 ways, but you don't have them going the other way. And you got a big, huge tree on the corner. And man, if you can't see around that tree and somebody's coming like a bat out of heck with a cattle guard on the front of their truck, they can hit you and send you for a loop. And so I've used the police officers. But my background is I was in the car business for 21 years. In that 21 years being in the car business, I've probably been a part of 20,000 car deals. I haven't sold that many cars, but I've had a ton of people buy from me because they're confident in me. I communicate with them. I'm clear and they know what's going on. I want the opportunity to go and help Syracuse be a better Syracuse. I want to roll out the carpet for new business. I want people here, but I want them to know that we're firm and we're fair. Because as we've seen in the past, people wander until they find a fence. They find every loophole that they can to take advantage of you. And so I want us to be known that when they come to the council, they have their ducks in a row. We know exactly what they want us to approve. We know exactly what it is, and they know from us exactly what we expect from them, so that there's clear communication there. Jordan, I love you being out and riding the horses with the equestrian club and doing that and getting in the mud with the people. That's what I want to do. I want to be in the chamber. I want to be with the Rotary. I want to be with the Lions. I want to be with those people. I want to find out their needs. I want to be in the mud. I'm doing this. My why? I don't know. Crap. We moved here 3.5 years ago over into Craig Estates. And, you know, and being 3.5 years ago, this was not even close to on my agenda. 3 weeks ago, this was not even close to on my agenda. I go out of town and I had people that said, God, why don't you go and try to fill this spot? My Facebook was blowing up. People sending me messages. Why don't you go and try to do this? Well, because I don't even know how to put together a resume. I'll help you put together a resume. Okay, well then help me. Well, I can't do it right now. Oh, crap. So now I'm out of town and I'm going, do I put this together or do I not? My little brother helped me put together a resume. I put together the letter. If you're looking for somebody that types 60 words a minute, you got the wrong guy. If you're looking for somebody that can do a PowerPoint presentation, you got the wrong guy. If you're looking for somebody that you guys need to call Executech and say, hey, guess what? We're going to have to raise our budget next year because we just got a councilman that he doesn't know nothing about computers, then you got the right guy. I'm a people person and I can do the job.
Good evening, Mayor and members of the City Council. Appreciate the opportunity. My name is Mike Palmer. Been a citizen of Syracuse City for 22 years. I moved in, there was 9,000 people here. There's a few people in this room that have been here longer than me. They probably can talk about when there's just, maybe 2,000 or 3,000. I've seen the changes. I remember driving down Antelope Drive and it being a 2-lane road and wondering if I was going to get rear-ended as I tried to turn left into my neighborhood. It's what it is. Growth is growth, and it's happened. We are where we are, and I've loved being a part of this community for 22 years. I've owned 3 homes in Syracuse. We moved again. We never could leave Syracuse because we love it. I believe I bring a unique set of experiences to the City Council. I've worked for a big corporation. I currently work for a small one. When I was at Wells Fargo, there was 280,000 employees. I now am at a financial services company called Tab Bank, and there's less than 300 employees. We've had it, when I started there, it was about 180. So it's a very small operation. The part of the leadership team there at Tab Bank, and we've completely changed the culture of that bank. When I started there, people were dying to leave. And now people are killing to come, and they want to be part of Tab Bank. We were just awarded best place to work in Utah by Utah Business Magazine because of the culture that we've created there. And I believe I could help build that culture and continue building that culture here in Syracuse City. I had the opportunity to work with federal banking regulators. I get what it's like to work inside of government or with government. It can be a challenge. I also I'm the chairman of the board of a nonprofit organization down in Salt Lake. So I've seen we finance low-income housing projects throughout the Intermountain West there through that nonprofit. And we have members of developers to bankers to members of city and county governments, other quasi-government organizations that are part of that board. And so I've been able to work across many different lines, many different types of people in that opportunity. I come from a family of entrepreneurs. I am not one. I am much more risk averse than my brothers that have built successful businesses, but it makes for fun family conversations. So I feel like I understand where they're coming from. Another unique thing I do is each summer, my dad has a farm in Winder, Idaho. I'd be surprised if anybody knows where it is. I don't know what the population is, but it's less than a couple of hundred, I would think. So I go out there and I run a tractor. My dad owns land, owns farms. understand what farmers are thinking, and we have several of them here in this town. I have 6 kids. They're all different. They bring different challenges, so I understand how to adapt to different situations. In the next 2 years, I want to help develop certainty, consistency, and transparency for people that the constituents of the city, whether it's businesses or citizens, and help to continue to build that so that people know what to expect when they're living in or doing business in Syracuse. I think one of the biggest challenges we have in politics in general in the country right now is I'm right and you're wrong. It's right versus left. There is no consensus that gets built. I have it my way, you have it your way, and we just draw that line and we never want to cross that line. I believe that we've got to get back to the middle. I think I can help people do that. I'm not on one side of any fence or the other. I really think that the best way forward for Syracuse City is aligning interests of everybody and getting people on both sides to sacrifice or give, whether it's on a project or whatever that looks like, that you can move both sides of that to the middle, closer to the middle, so that there doesn't have to be such a I win, you lose mentality. Look forward to the opportunity to work with you, and I'd love to set a vision for what Syracuse can become the next 22 years that I live here. Thanks.
Good evening, Mayor, council members. I have 2 goals tonight. Number 1, I want to be the candidate with the shortest amount of tenure in Syracuse. I've lived here just over a year, and I will not even close to be taking 5 minutes. So prior to living in Syracuse, we lived in Clearfield for a number of years, and where I served and spent a lot of time working in the city. Spent a lot of time with Parks and Rec. I ran for city council for a time, and it was a very, very eye-opening experience. I work in the financial services industry also. I work for Zions Bank, so I deal a lot with budgets, financial statements, looking at numbers all day long and trying to validate and explain why we got to where we got with our numbers. Do I have all the answers? No, I don't. I can guarantee you I don't. But am I willing to work? Yeah. Let's work collaboratively together. Let's break down all the walls. Let's come to some common ground, and let's make Syracuse a better city. Look, 4 minutes. Thank you.
City council members, mayor, thank you for the opportunity to be here to tell you a little bit about myself. My name is Paul Watson. I'm a 14-year resident of Syracuse, a registered voter, a former candidate for Syracuse City Council. While a vacated council seat is filled by the application process or an application process, I think it is important to consider the voice of the Syracuse citizens with this appointment. Jordan Savage and Jennifer Carver were elected to the 2 available council seats in the most recent election. I was a close third behind Ms. Carver, only trailing by about 50 votes. As a city council candidate, I have already demonstrated my desire and willingness to serve our citizens. I would ask the council and mayor to put considerable weight on my 3rd place standing in the election when considering applicants to fill this vacant seat. If given the opportunity, I would be honored to serve the citizens of Syracuse. I will strive to make sure all citizens feel heard and respected. I will look for opportunities to find common ground where there is disagreement. Most importantly, I will be the voice for the citizens whom I represent. A little bit about my professional background. I hold a business degree, a bachelor's degree from Utah State University with an emphasis in economics. Some of my expertise is operations management, project management, budgeting and financial management, personnel management, and contract negotiations. As a small business owner and operations professional, I have the opportunity to look for out-of-the-box solutions, to create efficiencies where inefficiencies exist. As a small business owner, I have to work within a budget. I don't have unlimited resources, much like a city government. I have to think of creative ways to solve problems, and I would apply those same ideals to this position. Something that you may not know about me, in some of my professional endeavors, I've had the opportunity to service accounts for UDOT. I, at one point in my career, traveled the nation visiting sheriff's departments and police departments and helping them understand how they can be more efficient with their software use. So I had to respond to RFPs and things like that. We had to present in front of city councils to help those public safety departments get the tools that they needed. A little bit, I wanted to touch just a bit on some of the questions that you had asked us to answer. So the first question, which I think is probably why you made it the first question, is the most important. What do you believe is the primary role of a city council member, and what skills, traits, and characteristics do you feel you have that will help you effectively fulfill this role? So in my professional life, I am a fiduciary, which means I have a legal obligation to put my client's interests before mine. One of those duties that a fiduciary has is loyalty. And I believe that first and foremost in this role as a city council member, I would represent the citizens of Syracuse and owe them my loyalty. I do not represent developers or other entities and would not put their interests above the citizens. Some of the things that I mentioned in my campaign for city council, I had 4 areas of focus, and I would still focus on those areas. This is a very high level. You've got the more more bulleted point in front of you, but community outreach and involvement, I think, is fundamentally important. Economic development, smart growth, and fiscal responsibility. I would just, in conclusion, I want to go back and I want to urge the council and mayor to really consider that aspect of loyalty when you're looking at filling this position. The citizens have already spoken. They have made your job easy. I would ask you to consider their recommendation. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you all. That concludes our first step in this process. I will just highlight for council and anyone out there in the universe listening to us through our YouTube presentation that the process that we are following has been outlined in the packet very clearly. So I'm just taking us through that step by step. That next step would be that council has the option to discuss the candidates. This is interesting because about 15 years ago, the law changed and we cannot do this in a closed session. It has to be done in front of you. So hopefully you'll all show your thick skin here because we have to, the only discussion that we're allowed to have is in front of you. So I open that up to council if you have any discussion amongst yourselves.
So we're only allowed to pick one?
No,
3.
No, 3.
I'm just
So,
kidding. I mean,
okay.
at the end of all this.
So seeing no, if there's no discussion, we'll go on to the next step. The next step is that you each have 3 ballots in front of you. And you can select up to 3 candidates that you've seen here out of the 9 remaining. You do not have to select 3 if you do not wish to. You can vote for less. But you need to cast these 3 ballots now at this time by circling them on your ballot, all 3 at this time, or if you choose to do less. And then Cassie's going to tally them for us. And again, these have to be read and accounted for as to who voted.
So Mayor, just quick point of clarification. Yep. You do have 3 ballots in front of you. Just fill out 1 ballot.
Oh, sorry.
Voting for up to 3 people on 1 ballot.
Okay, 1 ballot up to 3 people. Sorry.
That's just in case you
change
your mind or we need to do a runoff or just have extras.
So I'll give you a few minutes to do that. Council, let me know when you're done.
Now you said circle. I just see a box. Am I allowed?
Okay, use the box. X check.
I just want to make sure I'm doing this right.
Sorry. Last time we did, I do not have a ballot because I only break the tie. But the last time we did this, we were circling, so I'm sorry for that. Don't let me interrupt your votes there, Jordan.
Thank you, sir.
If when you're done, you'll pass them to the center and then I will deliver them to Cassie.
Oh.
Thank you, sir. Waiting on one.
Now it really feels like a courtroom. Thanks, Chief.
Okay. Cassie is our city recorder. She'll be the one tallying the votes. Thank you, Chief.
We should have had some music to play for a second.
Okay, sorry.
I know Dave sings.
And Brody would be verifying the vote. That's our city manager. So we know Cassie's not cheating, which I would never suspect.
My fidget started kicking around, spinning the chair.
Now, don't you have to read the ballots as well publicly? Okay, just checking.
Okay, so Councilmember Bingham voted for Jill Bonsteel, Brett Cragen, and Mike Palmer. Councilmember Savage voted for Brett Cragen, Doug Lund, and Paul Watson. Councilmember Carver voted for Paul Watson. Councilmember Teague voted for Jill Bonsteel, Brett Cragen, and Mike Palmer. So that means Jill Bonsteel has 2 votes, Brett Cragen has 3 votes, Doug Lund has 1 vote, Mike Palmer has 2 votes, Paul Watson has 2 votes. So Doug is automatically eliminated. We will need to do a runoff vote between Jill, Mike, and Paul. So Brett Cragen automatically advances. So if you can use one of your other ballots, and you can only vote for obviously those 3 again. So Jill, Mike, and Paul.
Okay, but that's 3 and we can only have possibly 2 more. So that would mean that at most they could vote for 2. Correct?
How many we're voting for on this?
Hey, Paul.
Or just 1?
Jump in really quick here. Help me clarify that one. I'm not good
No
at
way they
doing
could
math
vote
in
for all
public.
3 of the 3 remaining or we would be here.
Yeah, so what the ordinance says is that you have 1 ballot for each council member. So you get 1, that means 1 vote. It's how I look at the ordinance. So there, 1 vote for who you'd like best of those.
So they can only vote for one of those
1.
3?
Let me double check the ordinance. Hang on.
Yeah, I need to read something else really quickly too, because we've done runoff in the past. Hang on one sec.
We've done runoffs with usually only 2 people, so having 3 is a little more nuanced.
Or do I break the tie?
Yes, sorry. So you will vote for just 2 people on the ballot for this runoff?
Okay.
No, yeah. So you can use your ballot
2.
and vote for up to 2 people
Does it
between,
matter which one? So we just, one is removed and that's it. So we're voting for any of the others?
you're voting for Jill Bonsteel, Mike Palmer, or Paul Watson. And you can vote for 2 of those 3.
I'm not the only one enjoying this, right? I think this is.
You're doing
Thank
fine.
you, Chief. You're awesome.
Agreed.
You people making me very angry. Okay, Councilmember Bingham voted for Jill Bonsteel and Mike Palmer. Councilmember Carver voted for Paul Watson. Councilmember Teague voted for Jill Bonsteel and Mike Palmer. Councilmember Savage voted for Mike Palmer and Paul Watson. So Mike Palmer advances, and we need to do a runoff between Jill Bonsteel and Paul Watson. So now use one of those ballots and just vote for one of those individuals. So we are still, yeah, just deadlocked on that one. It's 2-2 still for Jill and Paul.
This is where the mayor would chime in and break the tie.
Yeah, I just need Paul to
Confirm that?
confirm that. Yeah.
Correct. Yeah. Subsection 3C says, in the case of a tie vote during elimination, the mayor is entitled to cast the deciding vote.
Okay, so our two remaining candidates are Jill and Paul. I cast my ballot for Paul.
Okay, so we'll just announce for the record that that means Mike Palmer, Brett Cragen, and Paul Watson are advancing. And then this is where we start the next round of interviews, and each candidate has 10 minutes.
So we will have, yeah, each candidate will have 10 minutes for question and answer. We will go in the order on the that we have here with Brett Cragen, Mike Palmer, and Paul Watson. Brett, if you'll come to, there's 10-minute time limit. Council, I open it up to questions.
So I can start if that's.
Yeah, go ahead.
Everybody. Thank you for your interest, and also just thank you everybody else for your efforts and willingness to serve. So it's no secret that at times we're a fractured group and we go with lots of different opinions in lots of different directions. And it shows a lot about your character in how you handle defeat, so to speak, or when something doesn't go your way. Can you talk a little bit about how you handle when you're on the wrong end of a decision or things don't go your way, and how you still build consensus?
Sure. Council Member Teague, I mean, I'm an attorney. I've lost cases before. Unfortunately, I can't say I've won every case. I think that the most important thing as decisions are being made is, number one, to be civil. Number two, to understand positions that are made from everybody who is involved in that decision-making process, and then have that decision made. There have been times when I've lost cases where I disagreed with the result from the judge, but if I understood what the judge did and why he did it, I think that that's okay. But these decisions that are being made, they should not be done in a personal way. I don't think that there should be personal problems between council members, I think that if everything is handled professionally and if everything is above board and on the table, there might be reason to be disappointed with the decision, but that should not fracture the group, or that should not create any kind of animosity or any kind of disunity going forward.
Tell me what your thoughts are about social media's use. I know we talk a lot about transparency and communication. Do you feel that social media is the best way to go about that transparency and explaining what's going on, or do you think there are other avenues, or what are your thoughts about that?
I think that there needs to be other avenues that are employed for adequate transparency. I know that there are people who follow services platforms such as Facebook, and there are a number of citizens in our community who use Facebook, but Facebook is not representative of the city as a whole. It's hard to sometimes get a message conveyed in a way that is effective, and there's going to be bias to certain groups of people if solely that medium is used. The city has the ability through the newsletter, the city has the ability through the polls that it's used, the city has the ability to reach out and to provide the reasoning of decision-making, number one. And I think that is very important with what is going on in our city right now. I think that if the citizens better understood the process, and if the citizens better understood why the decisions that are made, I think that that would bring a unity to our community. But social media, is it effective? It is to some extent, but do I think that there are a broader range of avenues that could be used? I do. I think that the city has some of those in place. I think they could be utilized even a little bit better.
I'd like to go next, if you don't mind, Mayor.
Go ahead.
So in your packet, I was reading through it. I want to just point out something. You wrote, my top priorities would be appropriate economic growth and planning for measured growth. I wonder if you wouldn't mind talking about that. I think a lot of people talk about economic growth and measured growth, but I loved how you added appropriate and planning for measured growth. Can you talk about appropriate growth and how to adequately have that grow in a measured way?
And are you speaking residential or commercial, or?
You didn't specify. You just
Okay.
said my top priorities would be appropriate economic development and planning for measured growth.
Okay, I do think that economic growth is probably the primary concern in our city right now. There's going to be big changes. I mean, they're already here, and they're going to be coming as well. In order to figure out what we're going to do, I think that number one, there needs to be a discussion with the people who own ground in our city. It's going to be up to them to let us know whether or not that is something that can be used for economic growth, or whether it cannot be. If citizens are going to not allow their land to be used, that is something that can be taken off the table. But there does need to be a reach out to not only the current businesses, because they know what is going on in this community. They have an understanding of what is happening. They have an idea of complementary businesses that may be brought in that will help their business and build business in Syracuse as well. I think that needs to be done. I think that we absolutely have to foster a business-friendly relationship in this community. I'm concerned even about, and I'm glad that the council has handled things the way they have, but there is now a history going on of business owners that I'm aware of, or project owners who have come into the city, and it doesn't turn out the way that they expected. And they've spent thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars, and then things happen, or an ordinance change. I think that needs to be pinned down quickly and effectively. I don't think from a residential standpoint that we can take on a whole ton more of high density housing. We have enough of that right now. There's not very many places where that can go. I realize there are more applications coming in, but that is something that needs to be measured. So when I talk about appropriate measured growth, I think that needs to be handled very carefully. But the top concern, the top priority that I have is bringing in the right businesses for the right place at the right time. If we have that, that increases the economic viability of our city. It creates additional revenue that can be used for first responders, that can be used to provide benefit for the city. I think that there have been efforts made, but I think that there can be additional steps taken to even enhance what is being done right now.
So I'm going to dig into that appropriate word more. So by appropriate, you're talking, if you expand on that, just appropriate, what do you see as appropriate businesses in the immediate future of appropriate economic growth in the immediate future? You talked briefly about high density being somewhat limited. Is that due to space, or is that because of a dearth of applications?
I think it's both. I mean, that there have been a ton of applications that have been approved. We have a lot of high density that's coming. Go up and down Antelope. I mean, it's there, we see it. So we don't know how that is going to end up yet. There are issues that could come into play before too much higher density is brought into the mix. I think that that needs to be carefully evaluated. As far as economic, measured, appropriate economic growth, I don't think, at least I don't, I'm not sure even what property is available to bring in that growth. We have interchanges that are coming into play right now. It's time today to start planning for what happens with that particular property. What type of businesses do we want there? What really do we want there? And I'm not sure that there's been an answer to that, at least that I've heard, but that's something that can be addressed right now. And that's something that should be addressed right now. What is going to happen in the next few years is going to shape this community for 50 years.
Thank you, Brett.
Any others?
I'd like to ask another question. What do you see going into the future? You say what happens now will inform the next 50 years. Do you have any ideas or thoughts about what you'd like to see here, and any ideas for marketing the city?
From my understanding and discussions with staff, there are marketing efforts that are going on with the city right now. If we had commercial centers with appropriate businesses that I think are in the right spots, Clinton has done that very well. Farmington in some places has done that very well. They have business centers with great businesses, with a lot of traffic that comes through there that does not impact the residential property so much. I think that we can have that here if we have cooperative landowners and if we have a willingness to cater to those businesses. We can't keep having issues where Maverick comes in and then we push Maverick through 25 different iterations of what's going on. That's something that can be dealt with at the front. Now, does that mean that there won't be some changes? Of course not. But it can be better structured. And there's been some discussion about that tonight. But it can be better structured so when these businesses come to Syracuse, they feel welcome and they want to be here and they know that there's a willingness of this community to bring in appropriate businesses. And there are plenty of them out there.
Thank you. Your time is up.
Thanks.
Mike? Who'd like to begin?
I kind of want to know the same thing I asked earlier. I can rephrase it if it helps, but essentially it's just kind of how you manage, being on the losing end of a decision. You talked a lot about mediation and coming to the middle and moderating so that you can move forward. But can you speak a little bit more about how your strategy is for that and what that means to you?
I lose more than I win. So I guess I've done it a lot. Lost one, a big one this past, it was last week. Multi-million-dollar project we're working on at the bank. Key players leaving. Had a proposal to try to retain them. I got shot down by my boss, who's the president of the bank, and a couple other members of the executive team. Why did I go on? Why didn't I stomp my feet and walk out because we have a tremendous trust amongst that team. That I know that those people, even though they told me no, were working for the best interest of Tab Bank. And so it's the same thing everywhere I've been, is if you have trust with the people that you're working with, it's like, okay, Seth said no, fine, I trust him, then let's move on to the next thing. And we have to. When you're in business, business doesn't stop. I've still got to get that project across the line. I've got to figure out how to do it timely. I got to figure out how to do it with less expenditures. And you have to move on, but I think it's really founded in trust.
Thanks. I'll take a couple if you don't mind.
Go ahead.
In your packet, one of the items you mentioned were one of the jobs of the council is to provide guide rails that they can count on to be there and not change. Can you expound on what you mean by that?
I think it's a little bit what Mr. Cragen was saying is, as you're investing as a business, as a family even, you want to know the house you built isn't going to have the landfill put in behind it. You want to know as a business that you're going to be able to invest, tens of thousands, millions of dollars, and be able to get your project through based on the guardrails that have been set, and that they're not going to move mid-project. And I think that's key to creating a business-friendly environment. Because if I'm going to, one of the things that we're working on is a new online and mobile banking platform. If I'm going to invest millions of dollars in that platform, I've got to know that the people that I'm working with aren't going to change how that platform is going to behave halfway through the project, and what I've got to do to get that thing done, because then I end up spending millions more to finish that project. So I think it's the council's responsibility to be firm. Sorry, Brent, I'm taking all your words. And put in those guardrails so that there's a vision of what, if I'm a business owner and want to invest in building a business here in Syracuse, that I know what those guardrails are going to be.
Okay, thank you. The next question, similar to what I talked to with Brett. Tell me your feelings on, I know there's a lot of concern from people I represent about density in the community. What is your stance on where we are in density, what you think the future of some of these densities are, and what you'd like to see for Syracuse?
Everybody wants quarter-acre lots, single-family homes. I think the first house that I bought here in Syracuse, I could probably, 3 stones throws from this building. 1,800 square feet on a quarter-acre, huge backyard. My kids could run and play in it. Paid $128,000 for it. That same house, I think, anecdotally just sold for like $315,000. Those things are going to become more and more challenging. And it's incumbent upon the council to, again, kind of build those guardrails and say, okay, where do we want high density housing? I don't know if we have enough yet or not. There's 900 approved units in here. I know when my child got married last summer, there wasn't anything in Syracuse, any place for her and her husband to live. So she went to Ogden. Love to have her around, love to not be a 25-minute commute for her. So my thing is let's study it out, make a plan for it. Is there a magic number? I think that's going to change with inflation doing what it's doing. It's hard to say what the number is right now, because that single family residence dream is going to be harder and harder to reach.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Single family dreams can be harder and harder to reach. We know that in this city that it's not just the residents that we need to take care of. How do you feel about the current pay wages across the board, not just the very public police department, but across the board for our city employees?
So I can't tell you what the city recorder should make. I have no idea. I've never studied that out. I'm sure there's public information that can be found. I think you absolutely have to be competitive. So one of the groups that reports up to me is our customer service department at Tab Bank. We employ 13 people there right now. 5 years ago, we were paying them $8.50 an hour. We just raised our minimum wage, our starting wage, to $15.50 an hour. Because you have to be competitive to attract talent. It's not the only thing. There's part of it that's culture. If employees feel like the city council has their back, then they may take a lower wage. I mean, I can tell you there's a lot of call centers in Ogden that have higher wages than we do at Tab Bank. But I can still attract people at $1 or $2 an hour less because we are a great place to work and they like that. So there's a fine balance you have to play there that says competitive wages, great place to work. I think those two come together to make an employee happy.
What are your thoughts about the West Davis corridor coming in? You've written in your application that you could see there would be opportunities for just that we need to take advantage of as a city. What are your thoughts about that?
First of all, I'm disappointed. When I moved out here 22 years ago and I bought that 1,800 square foot house, I was told that that road was coming. My realtor knew 22 years ago that that road was going to be built. And I don't think we've done enough to prepare for that. We didn't, if UDOT knows where a road is going to go, or if a realtor knows about where a road is going to go 22 years ago, we should be thinking that far ahead. And I think it's incumbent upon this council to plan that far out and look that far out. I think it creates tremendous opportunity. I think I wrote in there that the joke that I've heard is Syracuse is at the end of 2 dead end roads. You go to 2000 West, Antelope Drive. I mean, you really are at the end of 2 dead end roads. And everybody knows in business, it's location, location, location. So with the West Davis corridor coming through, all of a sudden you've got some through traffic that gives you an opportunity to dictate's probably the wrong word, but to create an environment to attract more businesses, to put a plan in place around that corridor and the interchanges that are being built.
Anyone for a last question?
I'll take another one.
Go ahead, Jordan.
So you mentioned that your bank is voted one of the best places to work in Utah. What did you do to foster that environment? What did you contribute to that?
A lot of collaboration and a lot of pushing things forward to see what we could become. When I got there 9 years ago, we'd just been spun off from a bankrupt entity, and there was a lot of issues. I mean, we'd lost literally tens of millions of dollars in bad loans. And it was resize and then create a vision for what we can become. And I was in compliance at the time. It's like, hey, we can do this. Moved over to operations, retained some people to say, look, if you want to go do something like this, why don't we just do it here at Tab Bank? And so it was creating that vision of, hey, look, we can create an online and mobile banking platform that is very malleable, and we can create unique products for that. And people want to buy into that. I mean, my people aren't the highest paid operators in banks in Utah, but they want to create something really cool. And so that's what we do.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I think we're out of time for another question. So Paul? Who'd like to start?
I'll ask the same question I asked him.
Sorry, repeat it.
About the wage situation right now for our employees in Syracuse City.
Wage situation for employees. Yeah. So, I mean, when you're looking at employee wage, we're looking within the confines of a budget, right? So we have to be as competitive as possible. And if the employee wages are not where they need to be to retain good employees, we need to look at solutions as to how we increase that. So we either have to increase our revenue for the city, or we have to reallocate some of our budget from one area to another. But I certainly agree that we need to be competitive with salaries to retain good employees. Absolutely.
I'll take one.
Go ahead, Jordan.
So you wrote We should be less concerned about the style of architecture on a building and more focused on whether or not a particular business development will have a positive impact on our community. Can you expand on that? Tell me what you mean by defocus on architecture and more focus on
Sure.
positive impact.
Sure. I guess my reference to that was during I sat through a city council meeting when we were looking at all of these different high density housing complexes. And as a citizen sitting out there seemed to be an inordinate amount of time being spent on architectural design and structure. And I thought, wow, really our job as a city, I mean, we have economic and business development portion that can make sure it's going to adhere to our architectural standards. As a council member, I would want to make sure that I'm understanding how that development is going to impact the city, how it's going to impact the citizens, and what the benefit of that development is to the city and citizens. That's what I meant by that.
So you're okay with architectural standards?
I'm okay with architectural standards.
I want to make sure
yes.
that was clear.
I don't think I don't think I'm the best person if I were on the council. I don't think I'm the best person to give architectural advice. That's not my forte.
You also mentioned a lot about being a voice to those who elected you. How do you gather their voice, if you will? Is social media the best way? And then as a secondary, well, I'll follow up on that after you finish this.
Okay, thank you. Don't overwhelm me. Yeah, so I think being the voice for citizens, it means making a concerted effort to seek out and find input from citizens. I do think social media is probably a really good way to get input from some folks. But I think there's certainly other avenues of communication that can be involved. Not everyone is going to be on social media. So I think it's making yourself available for those other channels of citizen input, whether it be phone calls and returning phone calls, whether it be receiving emails and responding to those emails. But yeah, I think social media can be a powerful tool in keeping the citizenry informed.
Now I'll use my follow-up, because this is something that was actually expressed as a concern that I've seen in the past. Do you think it's appropriate to call out fellow council members on social media or people you disagree with as a city council member?
Well, explain to me what you mean by call out.
We've had just that's just one thing that someone brought up is if a vote doesn't go your way, is it appropriate to go to social media to express your frustrations about other council members?
Most of my interaction on city council or on social media, I think if you're using social media as a tool and you're using that to inform citizens, I don't think it's at all inappropriate to say, hey, this is what happened on a particular vote. This is my opinion on it. This is how I voted. This is how others voted. I don't think it's inappropriate to inform and be factual. I don't think it's a good idea to mudsling and call names and do things like that. But I don't see any, I guess, issue or problems with saying, hey, this was the vote. I didn't necessarily agree with it. Here's what happened. These are my thoughts on it. That's part of, in my mind, that's part of the process. That's how we keep citizens informed.
Okay, thank you.
So maybe just to follow up on that too. How do you ensure, I guess, kind of going back to what I've asked some of the others, but just, I guess, ensuring decorum in the light of, challenging decisions and making sure that everybody feels respected and heard and
sure. So yeah, so I think if there's a situation where something doesn't necessarily go your way, I think it's fine to be maybe discouraged or even upset because we're passionate about these things, right? It's good to have passion. And sometimes when we have passion, that means we're discouraged, we're upset when something doesn't go the way we think it should be. But I don't think that necessarily calls for disrespect, name calling, mudslinging, those types of things.
Okay, so along those lines, I'm sure you're familiar with what you've said about me and Seth and some of our staff members online in public meetings, and that would be considered character assassination, mudslinging
Okay, that's
under the guise
inappropriate.
of
Give me an
passion.
example, please.
So I believe that you said they were stammering fools. And you said that Seth and I were crazy and you knew that we were awful council members. So my question to you is.
I did not say,
I can
what
pull
you're
it up,
doing
but my
right now
question
is
to you
inappropriate.
is.
Okay,
if
I'm going to
you-
rule that you cannot assassinate the candidate, and that's what you're doing right now.
So I have a question. Can I finish my question?
If it's,
It-
all you've
along
done so
those
far
lines.
is insult the candidate.
No, I simply brought up a fact. It's a fact. We can look it up.
Okay, that's something that's set aside. You're not going to attack a candidate.
I won't attack a candidate. I brought up a fact. So I'd like to ask a question.
Can I
As
just
to-
one thing? Can I make sure he gets an extra minute added on?
Yes, absolutely. So Paul, I'd like to know if something comes up in the future that you disagree with some of the council members' votes or the staff members' opinions, how would you address it in the future?
Sure, absolutely. So if it's something that is voted on that is, goes a different way than how I voted, I would certainly want to explain that. I would still take opportunity to explain my opinion on it, how it voted, but I would not result to name calling and slandering. The things that you mentioned earlier are complete lies.
It's not true. I can pull it up on a video.
Okay.
We're moving past that, yes.
I'd like to ask another question if I may.
Let's see. Do you have anything, Jennifer? 'Cause
Yeah,
you've
go ahead
been
down
Left
there.
out.
No, I just don't.
Okay, then
understand.
go ahead, Jordan.
I actually want to ask the same question I asked of the other candidates. What do you feel is appropriate growth for the community and how to kind of bring that to fruition?
Sure. So, I mean, I think the appropriate growth for the community, I think we have to take into account what our citizenry wants, what our infrastructure will support. And we have to be looking at ways where we're going to be setting up our city for the future. I'm not a huge fan of high density housing. I think that we kind of I'm thankful that you're re-examining the mixed use zone. I think we really missed an opportunity with that mixed use zone where we had a lot of high density apartments come in with kind of a really small smattering of commercial space. I'd like to see that tilted where we've got, reasonable density with more sizable commercial aspects to it. I think we still have land that's left that can be used for those type of developments. But I really think we've got to maybe pump the brakes just a little bit and understand how we're going to be impacted by the high density housing that's been approved thus far before we continue to approve those types of developments.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, so.
Sure.
So you've talked a lot about in the past about ensuring proper infrastructure in place prior to development and growth and everything. Can
Mhm.
you kind of talk about what strategies you would take to fund those and how would we leverage growth to ensure that infrastructure was appropriate?
Yeah, so I think with any development, we've got to make sure that we understand the site studies. What are we requiring of those developments to make sure that we understand the impact that it's going to have on our infrastructure? Once we understand the impact that those developments are going to have on our infrastructure, we can then look at what resources we have to allocate to those projects. We can look at, what do we need to do to strengthen our infrastructure as far as roads go. I'll give you an example off the top of my head. So on 1000 West, just south of Antelope Drive, we've got a small parcel of land there next to Smith's where some PUD housing is going in, some really tight housing. So that type of development, I would want to understand the impact on 1000 West. I realize we're butting up against a UDOT road, but what are we looking at as far as improving that intersection, coordinating with UDOT so that we don't have the type of traffic issue that's going to be taxing on that roadway or infrastructure. Thanks.
Any last questions? Okay, thank you, Paul.
Thank you.
And let me apologize. I'm sorry that breach of decorum happened.
You're fine.
Okay, so the next step is that we, as a council and mayor, discuss the remaining candidates before a vote is taken. Is there someone who would like to begin?
This is tough.
Well, let me begin then. I will say this. I think in regards to respect for our citizens, I'm pleased that 2 of the 3 candidates were also finalists in the election. That says to me that there's some consideration for the fact that our citizens voted those the next 2 in line. I also think, and the reason that I voted to break the tie in favor of Mr. Watson is that by finishing next in line, that indicates that as far as our citizens are concerned, that would be the next person they would have elected. And having had an election so close, I think that we have to seriously respect the fact that our citizens have voted. And it's going to baffle my mind if we were to go another way, but I'm sure that that's a possibility.
Yeah, I mean, I would just say that those are some valid points. Unfortunately, the way math works, that's not exactly how it goes. Number one, if there was another option, people would maybe have different voting patterns. And so you can't speak to the fact that whether 50 votes or 30 extra votes separated the last 3rd and 4th place. To me, that's just not a valid argument. But the fact that they did put their name out there and garnered close to 2,000 or a little over 2,000 votes definitely gives us hope that the right folks are coming in and interested in the election. I'm just saying I don't think that that's exactly accurate.
I think
But
that
Elections
if there was 1, 2,
have-
or 3 seats, people would-
Elections in this city
You have no
have
idea.
been decided by 1 vote in the city. So I think that we have to respect that.
I also think
That those
in
are the people
past-
who chose to vote.
I think in the past, if we look back at different times when we filled a vacancy seat, I would say about 5 years ago, there was a time where there was discussion about maybe the next person in line should be voted in. And I believe you actually said that we should actually look at all the candidates who are out here and decide based on their qualifications, who's the most appropriate person. So I think it's kind of
We've
context-based
never
for you.
done it within
Yeah.
30 days or 60 days
I
of
mean,
an
we're
election.
all afforded our own thoughts on this.
So the people don't, so their opinion only matters now if it's within 30 days, but if it's been longer, it doesn't matter. Is that what you're saying? Or
What I'm
is that-
saying is that if we just had an election, I think that you have to consider their opinion. I think that if it's a year after the election, who's to say if the same people would even run again? I don't know.
Just like,
But right now, we know that 2 of them did run and they both finished in the top. And so I respect that. And I think that that's a valid assessment from the people of the city.
I think it's a wonderful collection of people who have put their name on this list, who have come forward and put forth great effort. Several of us up here have been appointed, and many of us went against people who had also been up for election previous, and we had not. So I think that unless we were to just disregard all of the other candidates and only have it be between those who have run elections, I think it would be a great disservice to do to the options that we have been given here. So I think I appreciate all of all that these different candidates bring to the table.
Yeah, I'm struggling here because all of these guys are impressive. Brett, I mean, his experience on the planning commission can't be denied. He's put in a ton of work there. And the planning commission has a very different role than the city council does. So I can see his expertise. Mike Palmer, I was very impressed by his ability to turn around a company, it sounds like. I mean, obviously there was a team. I really appreciated his discussion on trusting the other people on his team to to make choices. And I think on a city council, that's crucial. We were all elected. Every one of our votes is the same. And I thought that was very insightful to mention that, you know, each vote, regardless of which way it went, is we have to trust that each of you are making the decision because you feel it's what's best. And I think that was very appropriately said. And I also agree with Dave. We have a recent election that says Paul would be the next in line, and he is highly qualified. I'm gonna be honest. This is gonna be a rough one to pick. I'm just curious. In our next ballot, how many do we get to pick?
You don't have a next ballot. According to the process,
Here.
I know there is another one physically, okay, but according to the process that is published online, at the conclusion of discussion, voting council members make a motion to appoint one of the remaining candidates for the vacant office.
All right.
So at this point, we will conclude with a motion and a vote, up or down.
Okay.
So there's not another round of election. I mean, I would accept that, but we've published this.
Right.
I mean, I'm not saying that a secret ballot or whatever is not
Isn't a
valid.
roll call vote done by?
That's the final after we make a motion. There will be a roll call vote after a motion.
How do you roll call?
Roll call vote means each of us vote individually as called. It's not all at once. It's so that each person is identified according to their vote.
So are we doing that now? Like,
Well, I don't have a motion yet. So if there's more discussion to be had amongst council, this is the time. If not, I need to call for a motion of somebody.
Is it a motion or just a roll call of who they select?
No, it is a motion and then it's a roll call, yes or no. That's what's stated. That's what's printed, correct? So that's what we're going to follow because that's what's printed in our packet.
so I move that we move forward to our roll call vote.
No, you move for a candidate and then someone will have to second it.
I move for Mr. Paul Watson.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
I will second.
Okay, a motion and second. Roll call vote. Start at the far end and go down.
Councilmember Carver,
I vote for Mr. Paul Watson.
Councilmember Teague,
Nay.
Councilmember Bingham,
Nay.
Councilmember Savage,
Yay.
Mayor Mon.
Yay. So we have now elected Paul Watson, the next council member of Syracuse. We will now have a swearing in.
I think that means you have to come up.
Come on down.
Gotta stand up, bud.
We're going to have to stand in front of everyone. This is what we.
Raise your right hand and repeat after me. I state your name.
I, Paul Watson,
Do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support, obey, and defend
that I will support, obey, and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of Utah,
and the Constitution of Utah,
and that I will discharge the duties
and that I will discharge the duties
of the office of City Council Member
of the office of City Council Member
with fidelity.
with fidelity. Thank you.
Congratulations, council member. If
Thank
you will
you.
take your seat at either side, you're
Sure.
welcome to pick. Okay. That's always a little painful, but we are now concluded with that phase of the meeting. The next section is public comment. If anyone would like to make a public comment, you have 3 minutes and you may come forward. Mr. Lund, thank you for applying, by the way. Thank you
My name
for
is
staying.
Doug Lund, live at 2023 Craig Lane. And I would just like to thank everybody for the process and thank you for being here. I am extremely happy that Paul has been elected and that he will be put in this position. And I think now might be a time for Seth, for Lisa, for you guys to think of Seth's question that he asked everybody else. How does it feel being on the losing end when something like that happens? It's hard because I've heard derogatory comments in the city council meetings that I've been to with mudslinging and different things going on. And it's disappointing. Now is a time that we need to come together. I've been out there, I've been to people's houses the last month. I've been collecting things for the referendum. I've been doing all of that. I know what the people of Syracuse really want. And they want definitive decisions. They don't want, maybe we can put a hotel here, here, or here. And then the next day, the developer comes out and says, well, I'm going to put it over here. Well, he knew that in the beginning, but he walked right over us and walked right through us. We need to be strong and we need to come together with all the citizens. And I think that by putting Paul in, he had the citizens' votes, and that's the best thing for Syracuse. Thanks.
I hope I don't need to introduce myself again.
Mr. Palmer, you have introduced yourself. Thank you.
Just want to say thanks for the opportunity. I love living in Syracuse. The experience has been enlightening to me. Cassie, thank you for your help in helping me navigate something that I'm not good at. Good luck to all of you. I'll be supportive. I vote. I do all those things. If there's anything you need from me, don't hesitate to call. Paul, Brett, and the others that participated. It was a pleasure being a part of it. Thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Palmer. Any others? Okay, I will close public comment. I will say this at this time, for all those who applied, for all those who came before us, and for those who are just interested, there are openings in the city on some of the other committees and opportunities to serve. So I would encourage you to watch for the notices when these opportunities are out there. And we've had a few recent resignations, so there will be some postings. But I would encourage you to look for other places that you can serve. You are welcome. Thank you. Council, I'm going to ask that we now suspend this meeting only so that we can come back to council announcements after we've done the rest of our business, since that's the real reason we're here, and that's probably more important at this time. So if that's acceptable, any objection?
No.
Okay, we're going to move right into our work session, and we're going to stay here so that we can finish it and conserve time.
Can we take a 5-minute break?
That'd be great.
Okay, we'll take a 5-minute break.
Yeah, no kidding.